Hello, I'm Varsha Wallace, and this is Your One Precious Life. I'm particularly interested in those who do their day jobs alongside something else. And today we're meeting Paula Warwick. Paula is an international television executive who successfully set up a beeswax-inspired natural skincare business. And it's been a very interesting journey, which we're going to hear about. So hello, Paula.
Hi, Vasha. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited about our chat.
Yeah. So we met through mutual colleagues about 20 years ago, and we both just started new jobs at the time. What were you doing?
You had just left ITV, I think, to go to Fremantle, and I had just joined ITV in an international role. So my job title was International Format Production Consultant. And essentially that was a flying producer working across ITV's international formats, working with either ITV producers in their offices around the world or local producers and broadcasters to take them through how to make their version of ITV's formats. For example, Hell's Kitchen was a show that I worked on internationally. So I went over to Spain and worked with the Spanish team to help them make the show. So I worked across Hell's Kitchen, I'm a Celebrity, Dancing on Ice, Saturday Night Takeaway, Come Dine With Me, loads of others. And it was really when formats had just started to travel the world, and ITV, I was the only person working in an international production capacity at ITV, so one person, and I worked with ITV Distribution, which was called at the time Granada International, and then also, but physically I was with the entertainment development team at ITV, like the LWT building on the South Bank, so that iconic building.
And it's been turned into flats now, hasn't
I
it? Or being
know,
turned
I
into.
know.
So how did you end up in that job? How did you fall into that? I mean, most people fall into things. You may have had a strategy, but
No, God, I had no strategy. So I did, I was really into languages. So I did French and Russian A level and history. And when I did my degree in Russian language and literature at CES, which is now part of UCL. And then I lived in Moscow for a couple of years after I graduated. And when I came back, I'm from Manchester, and I signed up with a temping agency. I'd had a few other jobs down in London working in kind of like the arts. And I came back to Manchester and got a temping job. And one of my jobs was at Granada in Manchester. So that's how I got my foot in the door for TV, just purely by accident. And then I started working in development and production and moved down to London with Granada, and then moved to a different company. And one of the shows that I worked in this other company the format sold to about 20 countries. And I was working in development at the time. I became the flying producer for that format. It was called I'd Do Anything, many, many years ago on BBC.
and your role was literally to go and tell people how to make those versions. So people commission those shows because it's a franchise effectively, isn't it? They're taking those versions.
Exactly. So the way it works, obviously you know how it works, but the way it works is you have a show that works as a format, and a format is something that has a format structure that is repeatable and replicable. So there are lots of different format beats. So examples of really big formats are Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Big Brother. So lots of quiz and game shows, reality shows are formats. And international broadcasters, if something is a hit, they want to make their version of that show. So I would, for this particular show, which was a wish fulfillment show, I went around to lots of different countries and taught them how to make that show. So took them through the format production Bible, worked with them to adapt the format for different budgets, transmission patterns, different episode lengths. And so I was doing that on this wish fulfillment show and also working in development and production. And then there was a job advertised at ITV to do that as like the full job. So the whole job. And because of my background, working abroad, languages at university. I also, spent, a summer in the south of France working. I studied Spanish. So it was really appealing to me to combine my love of TV and my love of working with international people, because I'm really genuinely interested in other people and cultures and languages. And it was really exciting to get the opportunity to travel around and work on these, especially ITV, like massive formats, really high profile, with the best and the best of international broadcasters and producers all around the world. So it was really exciting.
And you're going off to UCL to study languages. Your background, your family, did you come from a family who had, gone to university before you, or?
No, so I come from a very working class family in North Manchester. So my mum was 18 when she had me. So I actually grew up with like my mum, my grandma, and my aunts and uncles, because they were they were teenagers, in North Manchester, which is actually like the rough part of Manchester. So a place called Blakely, which I hold very dear to my heart. And then I went to, just a regular school, but I was bright, and the head teacher spoke to my mum and said that, he thought that I should go in for the exam, like the 11 plus exams to get in, to see if I could get into, private school. And luckily, I did, and I got a scholarship to go to Manchester High School for Girls, which is one of the best. Well, it's definitely one of the best in the Northwest, if not the country. So and I'm really proud that I went there, because it's where it's got a very feminist backbone, and it's actually where Emmeline Pankhurst sent her daughters to study.
Gosh.
There's a real kind of, you can do anything, and it definitely changed the course of my life for sure. So definitely instilled in me that confidence that anything is possible.
So were you the first in your family to go to university?
Yeah, so I was the first one out of my whole family to go to university. And luckily I'd had this opportunity at Manchester High to study Russian. It was when it was in the 80s, and it was still the Soviet Union. And I was completely intrigued by it. And I had a very inspirational teacher called Mrs. Pollock, who put the fear of God into me. But, and it was really hard. Russian's really hard. But it was the first, homework that I would get out of my bag, because I wanted to please her, and I really got into it. And then I just continued that and went to UCL to study Russian language and literature at the time, like in the 90s. So it was this kind of period of massive political upheaval in Russia, and so much change, the collapse of communism, Yeltsin coming to power, and then hyperinflation and the rise of the oligarchs, and general strikes. So it was definitely, I remember my Russian teacher, when it was the fall of the Berlin Wall, and she was like, girls, you're living through history. And there was that kind of real sense of, wow, we're in the middle of like history happening all around us. So yeah, it was really exciting.
Yeah, and you went to Russia as well, didn't you, at the end of university? Or
Yeah, so I'd visited Russia before, when I was doing my A-levels in 91, and which was a massive culture shock. And then I went back to do a year abroad. And then when I graduated, I lived in Moscow for about a year and a half. And I was teaching English. I did a TEFL course, and I was teaching English for the first year. And then I stayed on and was working at Baker and McKenzie, which is a big American law firm, in marketing. And then it was, it was just so hard to live in Moscow. It was when there was that period of hyperinflation. I was getting paid, but had an American bank account, but I couldn't access money for about 6 months. I was going through my second winter there, which was like minus 30. People were just losing their jobs. There was nothing in the shops. There was literally empty shelves. And I thought, God, I've got a British passport. I just need to go home, basically.
Yeah.
Go home, because it was really tough. So I got out of there.
Yeah, gosh, it's amazing that you landed in this quite interesting job in television, because it's notoriously hard to get into television as well. We know so many people who it's hard. You have to be connected. You have to know people. Often people use, so you sort of got in there of your own volition, really.
Yeah. So I think like for my kids, it will be so different. I'm sure for yours, it will be the same, which is
Yeah,
now you can kind of, connect them to people. But I had no idea how TV worked. I was a big consumer of television. Like I loved TV,
yeah,
but I didn't have any connection whatsoever. And it was like a real, it was real kind of chance that I got my temping job at Granada, which is obviously iconic. Granada on
yeah,
Key Street, and I feel really lucky actually that it was at the time when it was, Coronation Street was still being filmed there. There
yeah,
was like Stars in the Rise and You've Been Framed and all of these kind of iconic
yeah.
shows, and you'd go to the canteen and you'd be bumping into Bette Lynch and Cilla Black, and it was really good times for sure.
And so, from your international job at Granada, what did you do from there?
I did about 3 years as this international format producer, production consultant, flying around, and then I moved within ITV to the network side, to the broadcaster, and I was commissioning editor for entertainment, and I was responsible for quiz and game shows, and then early evening Saturday night programming. So I commissioned All Star Mr. and Mrs., Celebrity Family Fortunes, also reversioned Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I came in at a time when it had been taken over by these quiz geeks, and lots of quizzers in syndicates trying to get on the show. So we kind of reworked that. And then I was I was the most junior person actually in the team. And so I worked with the other controllers across their shows to help them. So I was working across X Factor and Got Talent, as well. So it was really exciting, but it was definitely, it was really full on.
And then what did you do from there?
So I was at ITV for about 6 years, and then I moved from that role to a company called Shine, which was just starting this huge international expansion. So it was set up by Elizabeth Murdoch, and Alex Mahon had joined, and they were working together to kind of grow the company. And I went to see Alex, and she gave me a job straight away. And they had Liz is really inspirational, as is Alex, and they had assembled this really fantastic team of people, through hiring. They were acquiring companies, and it was really going on a kind of very quick expansion. They just set up, or were in the process of setting up, Shine Australia, Shine Germany, Shine France. They just acquired a big company, Reveille, in the States, big company in the Nordics called Metronome, and a show called Masterchef. They'd had the rights to Masterchef. It had been a real success for them on the BBC in the UK, and they had done a deal in Australia. So Fremantle in Australia was producing Masterchef and had reversioned it to turn it into a massive reality competition show. And just as I joined, it launched, and it became the #1 show ever in Australia, smashed so many ratings records. And off the back of that, then I came on board as, I think I came on board at first as an exec producer. I was head of international productions. So it was my responsibility to launch Shine's formats all around the world. And MasterChef was like the biggest one. So when I started, MasterChef had just launched. It was in the UK and just launched in Australia. And by the time I left, it was in about 55 countries. So during my time at Shine, I was flying around, getting the show set up in so many different places, which was just incredible.
Yeah, but it must have been pretty. I remember talking to you at the time, and it was you spent so much time abroad. You were traveling so much. It was
Yeah,
pretty full on.
yeah, it's one of those things that at first it's so exciting. So I was single, I didn't have kids, I wasn't like dating, And I was flying around and working with incredible people on an amazing show, and it was genuinely what I loved doing. But then when you have that kind of relentless travel where, you know, sometimes I didn't have time to come back to the UK, so I'd fly from one country to another country to another country, it becomes really unsustainable. And then as the company had grown, so the number of formats that I was responsible had grown, so then my team grew, and I could do a bit less travel. But then it coincided with Shine was looking at doing lots of co-productions, so then I would spend longer in each territory because I would put some teams together. So I spent 1 year, I calculated, I was actually out of the country more than I was in it, and it
Wow.
becomes unsustainable at that point. You know, if you want, you know, I think I joined when I was in my early to mid 30s, and as you're getting, you know, that kind of decade of your 30s, it's when you want, you know, I wanted to start, I'd met somebody, I wanted to kind of get settled down, I wanted to start having children, and it's kind of, that kind of lifestyle is incompatible, because it wasn't just, like going to Cannes or doing some business trips. It was, I had to go at specific production periods, so I just had no, so I'd miss, big family events and weddings, and it really took over my life, for sure. So it was, but it was amazing. But it was then, I think I had like burnout at the end, looking back.
Yeah, it's not surprising because it was absolutely relentless. I remember that time in your life. And then
Yeah.
you had your daughter.
Yes. Yeah. So I had my first baby right at the end, born in December 2013. And and I was still working at Shine at the time. And I think obviously this is why we're talking. So when she was born, she just instantly started, I was still in the hospital, and she started getting a rash, and the midwife said, oh, it's normal, she's just adjusting to life outside of the womb. But then it progressively got worse, and it would flare up and then recede, and it was really, it wasn't just like a few red spots, like her whole face would be blistered, cracking, kind of, pus coming out. And I remember she was only 8 weeks old, and she'd already had like 3 courses of antibiotics. I had the doctors on speed dial. I was at the doctor's the whole time, and I just didn't know what was causing it. And it was really awful. I felt like I was getting roadblocked by my GP. I remember one time we had to rush to A&E at midnight because her whole body like flared up. And then, just looking into, I remember I was going on I was told by the doctor to put Vaseline on, and I was like, there's something causing it. I need to get to the root cause. Anyway, I think I posted on some different mums groups on Facebook, and somebody on there said, go and see an allergy specialist, a specific one at Great Ormond Street Hospital. So I went, and we got her tested, and I think I saw a dermatologist first, who then did blood tests. She said, go and see this allergy specialist. And Vivi was allergic to eggs and dairy, getting it through my breast milk. So every time she fed, she'd have this allergic reaction. And then also she had eczema caused by, and it's really hard to get to the root cause, but basically by a process of elimination, it was anything like from dust to washing powder to fabric conditioner to, various things would, cause her skin to flare up.
Gosh, I mean, I remember talking to you about that at the time, and I remember saying, "Oh, try this cream and that cream," because everyone thinks that, 'cause, my kids had some rashes, so I thought, oh, it's just, a bit of cream will help, or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
obviously it was so much more than that.
Yeah, but it's really common. So it's like the more I, researched into it, it's actually eczema is very common. It's like growing at a kind of an astronomical rate, and I think about 30% of children now have it, like, under 5, and allergies are really increasing too. But the thing about, and through my research, I discovered that, like, once, if you have eczema or you have some skin condition, the 3 things that you need to do is get to the root cause of it. So find out what's causing it, because if you don't, it'll just keep reoccurring. Once you've found that out, then eliminate it. So if it's eggs and dairy, stop it, stop eating it. If it's dust, what we did is we got rid of our carpets and curtains and soft furnishings, and we got wooden floors and got shutters. We stopped using washing powder and instead use soap nuts. And also another thing that we've discovered is really good to have cool baths, but very, very quickly. So she was being bathed like twice a day, but for 30 seconds. So it's finding the root cause, eliminating it, and then keeping moisturized, because eczema skin is leaky. So it has a compromised skin barrier, which means you can let water out, so moisture out, so it becomes bone dry, and then you can let allergens in, which causes a flare up. So it's really important to keep moisturized, which is like a protective barrier on the skin. And what happened was, when she was about 2, so she could speak and communicate, she'd start screaming when I was putting the creams on that the doctor had prescribed. And, she said that they were hurting her. And then when I looked at the ingredients list, there were about 50 ingredients and so many chemicals or names that I didn't know what they were. I couldn't even pronounce. And I was like, well, obviously something in here is causing it, but like, what is it? How could I find out? And that's kind of what set me off on the journey of my skincare business, which I do alongside my TV stuff.
Of bet, yeah. And I remember being absolutely fascinated because you explained to me about candles and that they had lots of quite bad byproducts, which I didn't know. Obviously I changed the candles that I was using as well.
Good. Yeah.
But tell me about that, because I was fascinating in how you started using beeswax byproducts as well.
Yeah, so we were visiting a friend who lived on the South Coast, and she had all of these beautiful candles burning on her. She'd just started keeping bees, so she was a beekeeper in her spare time as a hobby. Yeah. So we got all the gear on, and we're looking at these, looking at the bees, and she was showing us, how to look after them. And then when we went inside, she had these beautiful candles burning. And I said, she's told me they were beeswax candles. And I hadn't really come across, I knew that, like churches used them, but I hadn't come across them too much. And then I was like, what? Oh God, they're amazing. And there was this kind of really beautiful, subtle scent of honey. And she said, it's gorgeous because it smells beautiful and it's all natural. Whereas these other brands, and I'm talking the expensive ones, they're made from paraffin wax and, chemical oils that not essential oils. And actually burning a kind of traditional candle in your house is like having a car exhaust in your house. It's giving off toxic chemicals. And suddenly, and she said, whereas beeswax candles, what they say, they've been around for thousands of years, and they say, I don't know how true this is, they can purify the air, but by burning them. But emitting negative ions. So I suddenly, it's kind of in slow motion. I was like, oh my God. So for my daughter, I'd got rid of our carpets and curtains and soft furnishings. I was washing her sheets twice a day. I was bathing her twice a day. It was really full on. But I'd still have this very expensive candle burning in the corner of the room. And it was toxic. And I had no idea. And I thought, God, if I don't know this, so many other people won't know it. And why don't we know it? It's really unhealthy, but we think it's good. It's kind of like, self-care Sunday, burn this candle. And actually it's terrible. And we carried on our conversation, and she was also saying, it's been used in skincare for thousands of years. And I got into beeswax, first of all, and beeswax candles.
Yeah.
And I just did loads of research. And this was at the same time my daughter was not happy about putting the creams on. And as I was doing my research, I found out that beeswax has so many benefits for your skin. So it's naturally antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal. It forms a protective barrier over the skin if you mix it with oils. So if you melt beeswax and you mix it with oils, it creates a balm. And when you have a balm, there's no water in it, it's anhydrous. And if you don't have water in something, you don't need chemical preservatives. And it was just like an aha moment, because I thought, oh my goodness, the creams that I'm putting on my daughter, the first ingredient is water. And everything else, there was paraffin in there, which is a byproduct of the petroleum industry. And it's the same as paraffin wax in a candle. And all of these chemicals. And I thought, well, what if I just put the beeswax and melt it and put it with organic oils and put that on her skin instead? And then I could limit it to a very small number of ingredients. So if there was a reaction, I would know it was one of those, and a process of elimination could work out if that. And that's how I created my first balms, and it was for her skin. So I did it. I made the balms just on my stove at home, and used it to moisturize, and her skin flare-ups completely calmed down. And that was how batch number 1 started.
Wow. And beeswax is, I think to remember you telling me, tell me if I'm wrong, is a byproduct of honey, isn't it? If you're making honey.
So you have your bees, they make honeycomb, which is, the hexagonal shapes that you have, when you get, if you see a beekeeper, they pull out when you go into a hive, you've got these square strips, and it's honeycomb, and inside those hexagonal parts, that's where the bees put their honey. So when you extract honey, you extract the honey, you've got the frames left, and if you melt those down, that's beeswax.
Well, see, I never knew that.
Oh,
It's quite
really?
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. And then,
Just
so I work with ethical beekeepers, because at the same time, there's a big decline of because bees are like fundamental to our own existence. They're, incredibly important pollinators. And it's really important that we protect bees for them, and but for for plants, for health, for our, we wouldn't have any of the foods that we eat if it wasn't for bees. So I work with ethical beekeepers who are devoted to, who work on small scale, basically, who are different to bee farmers who work on an industrial scale. These are local beekeepers who treat bees as nature intended. So it's really important not to take all the honey away from bees, to sell on. Bees need honey to survive. It's when they take the surplus honey, and then those frames are melted down, and then that's used for beeswax. So there's lots of, once you get into, you'll see my bees here behind me. So I'm very very into bees. So this is an amazing artist, actually from Manchester, who these are all hand drawn bees. And when you get into it, there's so many amazing organizations and charities devoted to helping bees, and also helping communities around the world improve their lives through beekeeping. So it's definitely a kind of a big thing, which I knew nothing about until I got into bees, basically.
And so you were making products at home, you were primarily for your daughter's health. And how did you go from there to setting up a business?
There was a really big shift when I had my children, in terms of like that question, like, what's life all about? And I'd been working in TV for many years. And as you know, it's quite cyclical if you work in international. You've got the TV markets, you've got new formats coming down, but it's kind of the same thing. And I felt a little bit creatively unfulfilled. So I definitely use this as a kind of hobby I just thought, would it be interesting if I created a little brand, So creatively thinking like, what could the name be and what would the logo look like? Not really thinking it was for a business. And then I started, making the candles and making the balms, and then talking to my friends about it, and you were one of them. And
Yeah.
then some and then I just thought, actually, this could be like a nice little sideline that I'm doing, not necessarily as a money making, exercise, but more. I just felt like I just wanted to engage my brain in a different way, and also do something where I had full control and complete autonomy, and something that I felt that I'd be learning something from. So there's this whole kind of world of, branding and, making products and formulating, and then, online, having your own website and selling online, and email marketing and SEO. And it's this whole kind of world that I didn't know. And I just felt like I was learning a lot. And then a friend said I should meet a guy who invests in small scale businesses, kind of like Batch. And I wasn't looking for investment, but I just thought it'd be interesting to have a chat with him. And he said, he gave me loads of great advice, just about kind of products and about launching it as a brand, right? And said, actually, if you expand the range, so you've got three, four, five products rather than candles and one other thing, it's a more compelling proposition. And just had a very interesting chat with him. And I don't know why I had done this, but I'd signed up to take part in a trade show in about 6 months' time. And I said, "Oh, well, I could work on that." And he really liked the ideas I had for other products. And I just thought, "Oh God, that could be like a really great time to launch it as a business." So I just was doing it on the side. I was working full time as a consultant at Lionsgate by this time. So it was just something that I was doing at the weekends and the evenings, but I had this like hard deadline of September. I did Top Draw in September that year in 2019. And I got a range of products together. So I had beeswax balms for sensitive skin and eczema, and some with tea tree and lavender, the same with tea tree and lavender and prickly pear seed oil, and then bath soaks and the candle, a different range of bath soaks. And I launched there, and I was pulling in like help from friends and family to help me. Somebody that I worked with at Shine came down and was, working with me on the stand. And it's where buyers from stores all around the UK and Europe come to look at products that they're going to buy and stock in their stores. And I got from that, from doing Top Draw, I was stocked, like the Batch products were stocked in Petersham Nurseries, Dalesford Organic, lots of like small boutiques. Fortnum and Mason were interested. So there was a massive interest and lots of orders from that. And that made me think, oh God, actually this could be a proper business, So that's kind of how it started as a business.
And I remember talking to you at the time because I mean, I thought your branding was very lovely that you did, like you really thought it through in terms of the look, the beautiful amber glass jars, the very stylish labels. Did you visualize that yourself, or did you work with someone? Like, how did you do that, the
Yeah,
look of it?
so I got lots of inspiration from loads of brands that I admire, like that I liked the look of. So there was definitely an aesthetic that I liked, which was minimal, clean, and certain fonts that I liked. So that's part of the creative process that I really got into. So really noticing what I was drawn to and what I liked the look of. And then I actually worked with a platform because I didn't really want to, it's not a massive company. I have loads of money to spend. So I had to I just had to be very clear in my own head, like what I was going for. And then there's a platform, and I put for my logo, I put a brief out, and then you have different designers who kind of pitch for it with their ideas. And a designer came back and came up with my logo, which was, she chose a font that I really liked. I was very specific about what I liked, but she chose a font that I liked, Batch #1, and then over the top it has a bee. but it's three drops of honey, and they go together. Two of the wings and one is the body to make the bee. And I just thought it was really clever and really like spot on. And then that was the logo.
And what does batch number one mean?
When you get a batch of beeswax or you get a batch of
Yeah,
honey, it's unique. It's bespoke to you because every batch of honey or beeswax is different depending on the flowers the bees have pollinated. So you'll never get the
right.
same batch twice. And I was doing everything in small batches. And, so it was very kind of small scale, handmade, bespoke. And there's also this idea that the first batch of something is the most precious. So you want the first batch. That's why it was batch number one. So you're getting the first batch of products. And actually I didn't think this through as much, but it works out really well because I use it all the way through like my marketing, and it's like, batch product, like you've got, here's the first batch of this, we've got a new batch of that, so it actually works really well. And I love having just like a single word like bat. It can be abbreviated to batch. So yeah, batch and bees, there's that alliteration, so it works on quite a few different levels.
And so you were ticking along with that, and I remember at the time I think you were working 4 days a week, weren't you? So you had your TV job 4 days a week, and then did you have sort of Friday, Saturday, Sunday where you were having to look after the
Yeah, well,
children? You'd had a second daughter by then, and do batch.
yeah. So I was doing 5 days a week, but then I took it down to 4 days a week so that I could have
Yeah,
the 3 days, like the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, to work on it. And then I did so I was working at Lionsgate from 5 days to 4 days, but that was full on. And I had two little ones. And then I did Top Drawer in the September, and the business really took off over those 6 months, and my contract at Lionsgate was coming to an end. And I just thought, it's now or never. Like, I've really got to give it a go, otherwise I'll always kind of go, well, what if that could have been something? So when my contract finished in February, I didn't want to renew it, and I didn't look for another TV contract. I thought, I'll flip it around and I'll do batch 4 days a week in TV, it's, contract, like project by project. But that coincided, obviously that was just the month before lockdown and COVID,
yeah.
which I obviously didn't see coming. So I was thinking, oh my God, like what on earth have I done? But it turned out to be actually the best launch pad for the business because everybody was at home. Everybody was online shopping. I had this, I had a website. I was selling the products online, and everybody was having problems with their hands from sanitizing. Remember that time when everybody had like cracked hands, and this is what my
Yeah,
products were made for. And because I work
yeah.
in TV and I have people, I know people and I'm friends with people who have big followings, people were posting about the products, and the sales just completely shot through the roof. Yeah, which was amazing, but it was also really stressful as well. I had that moment, I was watching The Bear. I'm kind of late to The Bear, and I was watching The Bear. I think it was like the first season, and when there's some press about that, and the orders come in, and you're like, I can't. And so I remember it was like ka-chinging on my phone, and I was feeling sick. I was like, I can't. How am I going to get all these orders out? But it was one of those like moments. I was thinking, oh my God, yeah.
And because I guess you were having to homeschool as well, and
Well,
all of
yeah,
that as
if you
well.
call it that, but yeah, homeschool. And then I had offices, but then obviously we'd had to get out of our offices. I remember the office where I was, they were like, you've got 3 hours, you've got 2 hours to get out. We're just running up and down trying to pack the car. So I was doing everything from home, and the kids, and it's all just a blur now. But it was so full on. I remember, and then I had somebody that was working with me, but obviously, she wasn't there, and I hadn't gone. It's when we were properly locked down, and I was like packing orders till like 3 a.m. and getting up at 6, and yeah, it was really stressful. Yeah, it was. It was awful.
And yeah,
I'm like, what was
I
I
know I can.
doing?
No, I'm with you. I mean, I wasn't even having to. I was just had a day job, and I found it stressful being at home with two children and
Yeah.
having to work, it was pretty
And I just
horrendous.
remember it was the hottest summer ever. And I had all my boxes, for to pack, that they were shipped in. And it was just under a tarpaulin in my garden. So there was nowhere for us to even be outside. And then where I was doing everything was in the spare room, which is our attic room, and it was just like sweating because it was so hot. But it was just like I blinked, and then yeah, we got through it. It was really good for the business.
Did you have any notable failures? Like I seem to remember you telling me about labels not sticking to jars, and I don't
Oh
think there
my
was some
God, like
stories at the
so
time that
many, like so many things. Just like, um, yeah, just there was. Well, it's all kind of a, but I just wasn't really set up. So I totally could have maximized even more if I'd been set up properly, like with my email marketing and capturing email addresses. But I was just learning on the job. I didn't really know how to do any of this stuff, and websites going down, and yeah, just labels not sticking. But there's a girl who's amazing, worked for me. But when were allowed to go back into the offices, we just had like big orders of like hundreds of soaks for a store, and like the wrong labels just got put on everyone, and I was like, oh my God. Then like the wrong oil was put into another like 50 scrubs, and then so that had to be binned. And so many, like the other thing is, Royal Mail were just, it was they couldn't cope with how many deliveries they were doing at that time. So I had so many orders go missing, and so many people just going, where, and there was just nothing I could, control. And that was all really stressful. But yeah, things constantly going wrong. And when you don't really know
yeah, it
what you're
was,
doing, because it's even more stressful.
yeah.
You're like, and then I was really overcompensating because I wanted everyone to love it. But it was, looking back, I can't believe I did it. I can't believe like how many products were like thousands and thousands of products. So it's good that people wanted them.
And did you have to get them tested, don't you? You can't just sell something to put on your skin,
Yeah.
can you?
So
You have to go through a
yes.
process, I guess.
And this was another thing that I discovered in research. So when you have a cosmetic product, you have to work out the formulation, and depending on what's in the product, it has to go through various different tests. So with my products, everything is natural. There's no water in it. So I do the formulations. Those get checked by I work with Oxford Biosciences, who are amazing. We tweak formulation. You have to like submit like where you're getting the ingredients, what different levels there are of strength, depending on what the oil is. If you have something with water, which I don't, then you have a different level of testing, and then you get your certifications. But it's once you know what to do, it's fine.
And was there ever a moment, particularly when you once you'd got it under control, that you thought, oh wow, I've made it, I've done it, I've really achieved something? Did you have that sort of
Um,
light bulb moment, or were you just too busy in the thick of it?
Yeah, I don't know about you. I mean, do you ever think like, oh, I've achieved, like I've achieved something? It's kind of, I felt like I was just rolling with it. I was on a kind of like a
Yeah.
train that was just, so because then it's like the next thing, and then the next thing, and just moving like this constant velocity and constantly moving forward. And then I think with a business, you have like different levels. So at first it was like, God, even making a product. And then the next one is, oh, I got my first sale, and I felt really stressed. And I remember I didn't even know how to put the box together. And then the next thing, it's like, oh, I'm stocked in this store. And oh, yeah, then I've just got this order for thousands of products. And so, but there's so many different things that you're constantly having to think about, which is, supply chains and getting the ingredients and shipments. And then, you've got all your accounting, and you've got your marketing. And
Because I remember at the time you were very clear you wanted it to be carbon neutral, and that was very important, that it was ethical and it was very environmentally friendly. So you had very clear people that you wanted to work with, didn't you, in terms of your partners and how you did
yes.
that?
So, look, I think when you make a product, it's going to have an impact somewhere, but it's about making it as small as possible. So we don't use any plastic. It's glass jars that are infinitely recyclable. It's environmentally friendly and eco boxes for shipment, working with small scale producers from very, and I tried to work with as many British producers as possible. So the salts I get from the oldest salt manufacturer up in Scotland. The jars are produced in the UK. They're manufactured in the UK, and I actually get them from a supplier of bee products from Wales. So I've got all of these kind of like smaller scale companies that I work with, which I'm really happy about. And then some of
Yeah.
the oils I get direct from the growers in international growers. So I've got prickly pear seed oil that I import direct from Tunisia in North Africa. I've got some of the lavender oil and the rose I get direct from the growers in Bulgaria. So I research like where, and there are some that I absolutely don't work with.
Oh, the prickly pear is lovely. I remember you very excited
Really
and you gave
good.
me some to try and it was really nice. And so you got through COVID and well, no, tell me what happened next. And then I suppose the other thing that I'm quite fascinated by when all the people I've been talking to is because everyone says that their lives changed in some shape or form after COVID. So maybe the question, it's a dual question, is tell me what happened when you got through COVID and how did your life change, assuming it did, once you got through COVID?
Two really big things happened to me. One during COVID, which is my relationship broke down. So I split up with the father of my children, and he moved out. So I became a single mum. And then within the same year, my mum died. My mum passed away. So it was like the tail end of COVID. So I think that there was still some restrictions. So I felt that's why this kind of the whole COVID period was a massive gear shift for me, because my home life changed and my family life changed, and also my professional life had changed, because I'd gone from working in TV for many, many years to suddenly I woke up one day thinking everything has changed in my life, and I felt quite alone. So a little bit untethered, where you don't have anything to anchor you, because I was in a completely new industry. I woke up and I thought, so, I need something to be stable and something that feels like a real anchor. And I don't want to go too far down this road and lose my connection to TV. And it really, pulled into sharp focus life, and the life is really fragile. We don't have this kind of it's not guaranteed we're going to live to 100. You don't know what's around the corner. And it really made me think, reevaluate my life and what was really important. And I think on a level, that human connection is really important to me. And I felt that I was unanchored from my previous life, and I wanted to kind of get back to it for sure.
And so then at that point, I remember you meeting with you in Cannes where we had the TV festival, and you said you were putting some feelers out. I think you'd been doing a bit of consulting, but you were going to do a bit more consulting while keeping Batch
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, so what I did is I just got in touch with everybody that I knew to say, I'm here and I am working in TV, and if you need any help with anything. So I just wanted to be on people's radar, and the timing was really good because it was the first TV market, I think, after COVID. Yeah, off the back of that, I got lots of consulting jobs. And now I feel like I'm properly back in TV. A Batch is going and Batch is running alongside. And I have people that help me with it. But I definitely have skewed more back to TV, I think, because I really love it. I think I'm really good at it in what I do. I love the people. I'm really enthused. And I think having that kind of mental break from it has given me this kind of renewed excitement to be working back in it.
Yeah, I think that's really important to go. I felt like that actually after maternity, having two maternity leaves. Both times I came back feeling quite rejuvenated because I'd had time off, although it was with child. But I
Yeah.
came back to my job feeling like quite like I had a new sense of purpose and clarity.
Yeah, and
So
it's
what does a sort of average day for you look like, or an average week? Like, how do you work your different things that you're doing?
yeah, well, I'm working full time and I'm in the office every day. And that's the first time for about 10 years that I'm actually in an office like every day. So that's a shock to the system. But it's really good because one of the things I really believe in manifestation in the way that you kind of, if you want something, you put steps in place to achieve it. And I definitely wanted to feel part of something and to be working with people, face to face and have that. So I work during the day. Orders come in. I have stuff on my phone that I can do, and I usually spend Saturdays working in batch. I've got some people that help me. I usually go to batch maybe on a Tuesday evening, and keep everything ticking over. So I've got premises. We make the products in house and ship them. But what I have done is kind of scaled it back a little bit in terms of not having such an extensive product line, not having everything in stock all the time, like having my core products, and then there'll be a set number of certain products that go online, and then once they're sold, and they will come back at the next time that we produce them. So just operating things in a different way.
Yeah, it's amazing because you've got a real juggling act, being a single parent,
Yeah.
full-time job, business. Do you
Yeah.
get time for yourself? Do you get time to do any looking
Yeah.
after yourself?
Well, it's funny because it's not like I was just joking around going, I'm working two jobs for my kids as a joke, and but it's not really because it's a passion. So
Yeah,
so batch, I think, imagine if you play golf or if you're
yeah,
into your yoga, or like that's my hobby. So that is
yeah,
my, but sometimes if I'm exhausted, I'm like, I just want to like have a lie in. And also with my kids, like I love being a mum. They're at a really great age. They're like 8 and 10. I love being with them. So it's not, I don't look at any of it as a kind of hardship, or a kind of slog at all. I feel really lucky. I love it.
so a lot of
I
it's
love being
yeah,
a
a lot of
single
it's a
mom. I actually really
yeah.
love being a single mom. I like making my own decisions and being in charge. And
And I know the other thing you often talk to me about is stoicism. You often give me these great quotes. Can you tell me a bit about that? Because I don't know much about it.
yeah, it's quite accessible actually. The Stoics and Stoic philosophy, I find it's just because it makes sense. And there's a book called Meditations that Marcus Aurelius wrote, and it has been translated but then also distilled into lots of other books. And there's various Instagram accounts and other philosophers who send daily emails, and it's about how you live your life and just like adjusting your mind to deal with the situation that you're in. And so generally speaking, I think that the world, as we live in now, there's this scarcity mindset, which is, oh, I want the next one, and I'll be happy when I've got the bigger house or the bigger job or like more money or this bag or these clothes. But actually, you're never fulfilled by that. And it's about being happy with what you have, being grateful. Looking at things like an Ocado driver like smashed into my car, brand new car, and I was really upset about it. And it was like switching my mindset from having this kind of resentment and anger about it to kind of going, I'm really lucky that nobody was in it, and I'm really lucky that it wasn't worse, and I'm going to get it back next week, and I'm really lucky to have a car. Oh yeah, it's great that I've got this hire car coming, so it's just like changing your mindset, and also changing the mindset, being grateful for what you have, not wanting more, doing good things, being the kind of the positive change that you want to like see in the world. see in the world. And actually it's just looking at yourself, just being the best version that you can be of yourself, and just being happy with what you have, taking joy from a sunset or a sunrise, being happy that you're able to go on a beach holiday. It doesn't have to be a 5-star resort, taking enjoyment from your kids. They have this phrase, which is memento mori, which means remember you're going to die. And it's not a kind of maudlin, awful thought. It's like, really take that moment and make the moment that, really enjoy it, make it the best it can be, because you just don't know what's around the corner. So all of this, oh, I'll do it next week or I'll do it next year. It's like, now, do it now. Like, now's the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I called this One Precious Life, exactly that. Or it's named after the poem. When I told you, I said we have one precious life, and you said something back to me. I think it was a Chinese proverb about we have 2 lives. Can you remember that?
Yeah. So everybody has 2 lives. And the it's like, and it only starts when you realize you only have one. Be the person that you want to be right now. Do the things that you want to do. Tell somebody that you love them. Don't waste 20 years, because you might not have 20 years.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much, Paula. You're so inspirational. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to everything that you've
you are too,
talked
Vashti.
about.
Thanks for having me on. I feel very honoured.
Okay, thank you very much. And if you enjoyed this, please do subscribe to Living Your One Precious Life and check out my newsletters on Substack. Thank you.